Alright, so I get a sheet of G10. This is a 5x12 sheet. This is 1/8 inch thick. You can get them in different thicknesses. So this is somewhat thin, so it's easy to cut. But I use many layers, so it doesn't matter how thin it is really, as long as I use lots of layers. I downloaded a template. This one is a Kev Lucky 7. Once I get that, I cut it out and then I glue it onto the sheet of G10, and then I cut the pieces out roughly. Once I do that, I move over and I kind of fine tune it. So this is the Kev Lucky 7 here. It's a tiny little thing, fits in the pocket great, and it shoots just like any other big slingshot. So that's where I'm at with it right now. So once I got the pieces cut out, I need to score some lines. So I get myself a drill with a drill bit. Doesn't really matter what size. It's technically to score the G10 so that the adhesive has somewhere to stick and adhere to. The theory behind this is not my idea, it's somebody else's. I don't know where it came from. The first place I saw it was RCC. So yeah, so I'm gonna now take it and score the lines. Okay, so after cutting these out and scoring them, this is not a necessary step, but a lot of people like to add liners. So I have downloaded another template. I like to download lots of templates just so that I have better accurate measurements. So what I did was I glued it onto the liner. And this stuff it's fairly tough. It's pretty thin, as you can see, but it's fairly tough. So just to give you an idea, it's got a bit of strength to it, and a bit of a pain to cut. So I'm going to cut out 2 of these, and then I'm going to stick them in between the red and black. Okay, so I got that. I'm going to cut this part out, and then once I do that, it's going to look something like this, and then I'm going to scuff it up with some 220 grit sandpaper. And then I'm going to layer it like so. Like that. So it'll be all one piece. Okay, so because I did a bit of a bad job going around on the templates, I'm going to just sand a little bit just to make it easier for when I glue it and clamp it. Alright, so I grabbed some 120 grit sandpaper and I scuffed them all up. This stuff is so smooth that you just want to make sure it sticks. It's got something to stick to. And then I got just a little rag or whatnot and cleaning up a lot of the dust off of them. Make sure they're dried off too. Sure, you know what dust looks like. Then you just want to make sure that they're nice and dry before you put the epoxy on them. unclamp it. Make sure everything is nice and even. I got these 3 drying. Can't wait till they're all dry. Do some more work on them. No buy cheap. So now I unclamp it. Takes a lot of times, it takes the rubber tips off. So now you're left with that all covered in glue. See that? I use a lot of glue, but at least I know it's gonna stay stuck, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to sand that down, take a lot of that glue off, and make sure that it's a lot more fit to form. So here I am drilling a lanyard hole in it. Alright, so now I'm going to sand it. I put another template on top of it to use as a guide. Sometimes it's not 100%. A lot of times it's not 100%, but it's going to work fine. Hello. Alright, so I've decided to opt for a bigger lanyard hole. So I'm going to drill that hole right now. Okay, so now I want to add some mosaic pins. So I'm going to drill some holes for the mosaic pins.
So the mosaic pins are technically just to stop, if you drop it, it's technically to stop it from moving sideways, so it won't fall apart essentially.
So I have a mosaic pin here. I don't know if you can see it. Anywho, it's going to go into the forks there, and then I'm going to cut a piece of tubing for the lanyard hole. I'm pre-cutting this. There will be a palm swell on here. I do know the width of the material I'll be using for the palm swell, so that'll be on there. So I've had some change of plans. I'm going to make this thicker, but in order to do that, I need to sand that down flush so that some epoxy has something to grip onto, because I'm going to add some layers. So I'm going to sand it down on here, and then I'm going to glue some of this stuff on there once I sand that down too. Okay, so now I have this pile of mess right here, and what I'm going to do is glue it all together, so, or epoxy it all together. So just to make sure I got that right side there. Okay, I think I want it like that. Okay, so I'm going to take my liner, glue that. It's going to be a big mess here. Okay, now I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to put some clamps on it before I do the last piece. I'm going to go like that. Oh, I forgot my liner in there. This little liner here. Both sides of the liner. Like so. Big goopy mess. Make sure it's all fitting snug and tight, that it's all covered. So it's all covered. Yeah. Okay, so the epoxy's dry. So I take these clamps off. And this is where it's at. So that should give a nice effect, I think. Alright, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it around all of the edges here. And cut that pin off. now going to proceed to drill these holes so that they come out the back side. So now I'm going to take it to the oscillating sander, and I'm going to sand into these grooves here. So now I'm going to take it to the oscillating sander, and I'm going to get into these grooves and probably shape the top a little bit, as well as all the way around. Alright, so I cut these pins off, the mosaic pins that were right here. So now there's just a little bit of raised pin that's left, and then some epoxy. So I just got to get rid of that, and then it's some final shaping, because I want more of a pond swell area in here. And then it'll be going up to grits, going up the sanding grits, and then polish. Alright, so now I'm going to use my Dremel just to kind of do a bit of shaping here, and once that's done, I will do the Alright, so once I'm going to do some dremeling around here. Once that's done, I'm going to make some marks for the band grooves. Alright, so now I'm going to do some band grooves on it. So that's where it's at, and it's pretty basic. You just measure where you want them and make sure that they're even, unless you want them uneven. And how you mark them is however you want. There's many different ways. So I'm going to do this one, and I'll do it the same way. But right there are my markings, the inside and the outside. So now I'll take a ruler, and I will do this one to make sure that everything's lined up nicely there. And how you mark them is however you want. There's many different ways. So it's the way I'm doing this one. I don't always do it the same way. But right there are my markings on the inside and the outside. So now I'll just take my ruler, and I will use this one because it's sturdy. Make sure that everything is lined up nicely there. And once I do that, it's always good to make sure your pencil's sharp, because then you get a lot more accurate lines. And it's always good to double check. Decide if the spot you had them was where you wanted them or not. There we go. You see that? Okay, so now I'm going to use a diamond wheel on a rotary tool to mark some band grooves. Alright, so I just sanded it up to 2000 grit. It does have some minor things, such as things like that, which I'm not too worried about, but this is the point where I could probably go back and use some lower grit sandpaper and then kind of do those spots over again. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. So now I'm just running it on a buffer wheel